Welcome to the Smark Foundation podcast. I'm Aaron. This is Adam.
Yo, what's up, guys?
And we are here in our brand new studios,
So to speak.
so to speak. We've made a major upgrade to our production values, so we're gonna see if we can make this work like it should.
Yeah,
But
let's see if we can implement them. We are amateurs
yes,
learning, so let's learn.
so with that said, it's a glorious day to be back in wrestling. As usual, we remain well-fed wrestling fans. This is a nice trend that's been going on. I'm really enjoying being able to enjoy wrestling on a consistent basis, like 4 times a week.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, we've been fans long enough where we have definitely been experiencing up and down periods. I mean, the majority of our lives, we've only had one major wrestling promotion, like since 2001 to 2019, that huge chunk of time in our lives, there was really only one option for national wrestling. I mean, you had TNA in there, and they had some good times, but they were never really like super close, like at any point in time. No matter what the most diehard fans would have you believe. Sorry, guys. And it's not to say that your fandom is invalid. It's not, but like they were never close. They were never close. AEW is close now, and they were not nearly as close as WCW was. That's a matter of fact, because at 83 different points, WCW beat WWF in the ratings, whereas AEW has been NXT, and that's it. That's not a judgment of quality. As people who have heard this podcast know, I only watch AEW. So clearly, I'm not I'm not disappointed with the product overall to the point where I would quit it. But I mean, facts are facts, man. That's all it is. You know, I hate to bring him up because I think he's a shilly grifter, but Eric Bischoff, when he says that, is right because WCW did beat WWF, and AEW has never beaten WWE and the main brand. That being said, ratings, which we rarely talk about because we don't like to, and now they barely matter because they're on the streaming, um, does not always indicate quality.
No.
And for a very, very big portion of that very, very long time between 2001, when the Attitude Era pretty much ended, and 2019, when the AEW became a thing, there were some good things, but there was a lot of filler and a lot of crap. And like, there were some really bad years. 2003 was a really bad year. 2018 or 2019 was real bad. With the exception of introducing more women to the to the main roster. 2016 was pretty bad too. Like it. I'm trying to just point out that it's been a very long time since there not only has been one major brand that's really firing on all cylinders creatively, there are two. Like, you may not like this or that storyline or anything, but the wrestling, at least, if you like the art of wrestling, holy cow, this is the era for you to be a fan.
Mhm.
Holy cow. Like, I mean, Aaron and I talk about this all the time. He just reiterated a second ago. Yeah, we're well fed. Like, if you love wrestling, if you're more about the content of what happens in the squared circle than you are in the backstage interviews or what have you, the storylines, well, damn, you can't really go wrong right now. You've got WWE, you've got AEW, New Japan is finally bouncing back a bit. I mean, their G1 was amazing. They had several matches on Wrestle Kingdom that were just insane. Um, you've got NXT, which is bounced back. I know it's a subsidiary, I guess, or whatever. It's still part of WWE. But we were just talking before we recorded about how there were some dark days in NXT too.
Mhm.
Uh, the 2.0 era was not good, guys. It wasn't good. Sorry, it wasn't. Um, but yeah, now pretty much everything is doing really good work. So yeah, let's be happy about that. Because, man, little nitpicks aside about promoters or backstage politics or somebody's push or you don't like this guy or whatever, all that little tiny stuff aside, the overall picture for wrestling is like a gorgeous painting of a sunrise right now. And I say that because it's not midday. This is the beginning. This is not even close to the end of this boom period. I don't think. I really don't. I think we're going to be well fed for a while.
Yeah, I think so too. And even beyond the two majors, there's so many, just like pick your poison. Whatever you like about wrestling, there's a fed out there that does that. And if you think about a weird combination of something that you would like to see paired with wrestling, there's a fed out there that does that. I promise. Like, yeah, the stuff I've been seeing lately, like I've been introduced to all new kinds of stuff, like a bunch of different little like indie feds that I'm like, oh, they do this specific thing. Uh, okay. Like, I mean, if for the kind of people that like that kind of thing, that's cool. Like, I mean, and I like a lot of it. Some of it I don't understand, but um, I haven't been unentertained by anything clips I've watched or anything. So, um,
Niches within niches.
yeah, niches within, but still, even the big two, the televised stuff is all big. We're getting into an era where we're going to be very quickly, I think, once SmackDown and like NXT move over to Netflix full time or a streaming service of some kind, we're going to be completely out of the ratings era. Um, Ratings will no longer matter. People will be able to be free creatively. Things will hit and miss like it always does. We have a model for what happens when someone is given complete freedom of creativity without worrying about ratings. And it's just, how Vince McMahon operated for the last 40 years. Because he put some real shit out there and made some really terrible ratings. And he also put really great stuff out there. So some things stick, some things don't. That's true in wrestling always. Your favorite promotion is going to do something you hate, and your least favorite promotion is going to do something you might like. And either way, though, it's like, it's just the best time. It's just the best time to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah, there is something out there for literally anybody's particular taste as long as they like wrestling in its base form.
Yeah, yeah. As long as you like the squared circle, no matter what shape it takes, because there's like four or five different shapes. But as long as you like the squared circle and what goes on in between the ropes, you will find something you love in the world of wrestling.
If you're wondering where else you can find the Smark Foundation podcast, you can stream our show on Pandora, Spotify, and nearly anywhere else you normally stream your podcasts from, including our home at rss.com. We're also on YouTube, featuring not only full episodes of our show, but individual segments from each episode for easier content digestion. For any of those outlets, just type Smark Foundation Podcast into the search bar to find us. If you'd like to interact with us directly, we're very active on our new social media home, Blue Sky. You can contact the show at smarkfndnpodcast.bsky.social for general pro wrestling or podcast comments. And if you want to get to know us each a little bit more on a personal level, Aaron's personal account is at aaronsmark.bsky.social and Adam's is at adamsmarkfndnpodcast.bsky.social. If you'd like to further support our show, you can visit our shop at smarkfoundationpodcast.printful.me to purchase various merchandise with our show's logo on it. Wear your SFP t-shirt or hoodie around town and spread the word about the show that strives to bring fans together around what's great about pro wrestling today, brought to you by a couple of everyday elder millennial wrestling fan dads. Now back to the show.
Now we'll get into our lockup for the day, which is going to be our Raw review. Um, Man, okay, so we talked about this, um how it was going to be different, how Um, like how Raw on Netflix debut on January 6th was not going to be like the next Raw, and that the
Right.
next Raw was going to go back to being like a normal Raw. And that's exactly what happened. So,
Yeah.
yay, first of all. Okay, like I'm super happy about that. This just went right back to being a regular Raw. I'm so happy that that happened. We'll get into what I may or may not have, or well, what I may not have liked about it, but overall, just from beginning to end, this is just a regular Raw, just like you would see on USA Network, just like you would see on wherever else they ever showed Raw. I don't think they ever showed it anywhere else. Uh,
Spike TV for like
oh,
three
Spike
years.
TV for like 3 years, yeah. So okay, just like any Raw you would have ever seen anywhere, it's the same. So we kick off with CM Punk, and he comes out, talking about how he beat Seth Rollins and stuff like that, and he then throws his hat in the ring. He's now declared for the Rumble. So to this point in television, we've got John Cena now and now CM Punk. There will be more names even as this show goes on. Um, and to put it all up front, we are looking at a very, very, very stacked Royal Rumble. It's going to be very difficult to call who the winner is. Because there's a thousand ways it could go already, just with the names that have declared. Um,
Those are the best ones, though.
yeah, I love those. My favorite ones. So
92, 2001, like those, even a couple of years ago, like this more stacked they are, the better they tend
mhm.
to be.
Mm. So so CM Punk's going on about how he sees the WrestleMania sign that's not there yet, and all that stuff. And Rollins interrupts him, and the crowd kind of sings Rollins' song, but I think they're done. I think, like I am done with CM Punk and Seth Rollins already being a thing. I think they are too. I don't think this should continue, but it looks like it's going to somehow because Seth then also says that he's entering the Rumble. So now it's Cena and Rollins and Punk. And then they are interrupted by Drew McIntyre, who says they're both basically the same asshole. And he is not wrong, folks. For those of you who love Seth Rollins and hate CM Punk and really buy into the cancer thing, let me clue you in. Seth Rollins and CM Punk are the same asshole.
That's why they hate each other so much. They're too
Yeah.
similar.
They're exactly alike, and that's why they hate each other. Correct. So Drew McIntyre calls him the same asshole. He says the visionary Seth Rollins is a fake leader. Punk kind of cuts him off and challenges them both to a fight. And Rollins is just like, this is what you always do. Like he's like, you want to fight, but you're not thinking ahead. It's like, but I'm thinking ahead. And so I'm going to be in the Rumble too. So now we'll add McIntyre to that Rumble list. So within like the first like 5 minutes of Raw, we've added three not insignificant names to the Royal Rumble.
Two of those have already won Royal Rumbles.
Correct. Two have won. One of them is the other one who hasn't won has definitely already been the top champion in WWE. During the time of Super Cena, I believe. So yeah, that's significant. Especially with Cena coming back, like him and Punk facing off in the Rumble is going to happen. Mark
Oh,
my
it's got
words,
to.
they're 100% going to be across the ring from one another.
They don't want to miss out on that pop. Are you
Oh,
kidding me?
not if
No
it's the last
way.
time they're going to get it. So yeah,
Yeah.
we're going to get all like for all of you who don't understand how this is going to work, we are going to get all the cheapest pops. We are going to get
Cheapest pops,
all the freaking
greatest hits.
nostalgia pops. We're totally 100% getting Cena's greatest hits. Don't stand in the way of those of us enjoying it because I'm going to enjoy every second of it. So we've already that's just the first segment. We've already added three names to the Rumble on top of John Cena, who are all significant. Um, so Punk, I mean, before he started his promo, he kind of gave a shout out to the people in LA and talking about how Canada and Mexico are here helping out. Our hearts go out to all the people who are affected by the LA fires. By the way, if you're listening from out,
Absolutely.
please stay
I'm
safe.
glad they found Melina.
Yeah, I'm super happy. Good news in the wrestling world. They found Melina and she's safe. So, but for those of you who are affected by that, please stay safe. Um, we only want your safety. Um, so then, I mean, they kind of just had their thing. They did their thing. That was it. A lot of big names going into the Rumble. Nice, exciting first quarter. We come back from, uh, we come back from commercial. And immediately here comes Chad Gable and American Made, which means it is time for what Michael Cole literally said on his commentary, the worst kept secret in wrestling. And it's Penta's debut against Chad Gable. Let me let you in on something, folks. I love Penta. I am a Penta stan. This was a crap debut for him.
Really?
I didn't like it at all. Okay, here's the deal.
Oh no.
Here's the problem with what I did. And now there's a lot of people out there that are going to be like, that was a great debut. After the match, when he had his promo that he did half in like as much about as much English as he knows, and the other half in Spanish with the crying fan, like his family was ringside and bawling because obviously this is a big deal. He's made his WWE debut and stuff. Um, in San Jose, California, which is like a traditionally, Mexican area of the country. Um, he's like the promo after was moving and wonderful, and that made a lot of people forget about the match. And the match made Chad Gable look like $1 million and made Penta look like shit. And it's not because Chad wasn't trying to make him look good. It's because Penta was doing stuff that maybe he should have tested out in a WWE ring before he tried to do them.
That happens a lot with luchadors. I think that was one of the big downfalls of Sin Cara.
Yeah, I believe.
Was like, I don't know if it's the style or the ring itself, or they just didn't have enough time to like rehearse them, because they rehearse. Like
Yeah.
they don't do like the full thing, but they do like spots and stuff. I'm wondering if maybe they just didn't, between that and the language barriers, they just don't generally give these, specifically the foreign folks, the foreign professional wrestlers who don't speak English natively, enough time to be able to communicate what they want to do.
Mhm.
I mean, because you see this happen over and over again.
Yeah. I think in this case, it was a lot of rope tension issues. He tried to do like that bottom rope
Yeah,
leg drop and
yeah,
sat on the bottom rope, and it basically just sat him down on the mat and didn't give him any spring. And he like
that
kind of
that
rolled.
makes the most sense because he's wrestled in the United States for years now, so it can't be like a communication thing.
Uh,
It's got it.
it's
I
a
think you're
cable
right. It was
rope
probably
issue. It's a
yeah.
versus cable issue because AEW uses cables and WWE
Hmm.
uses ropes.
Yeah, I think they're the only ones who use actual
They
ropes,
are
right?
the only ones who use actual ropes that I know of. Every promotion I've ever worked for uses cable.
Mm.
Even like the old like sportatorium rings that I've worked in from like the WCCW days are cable with like and it's wrapped with duct tape to look like rope, like with some
Right.
like it's like foam over cable, and they wrap it with duct tape and it makes it look like rope, but it's not rope. It's cable. It's elevator cable. Um, but yeah, WWE uses actual rope, and I think I don't. I guess he didn't have enough time in the ring first, that during the day or whatever. Um, is this going to kill Penta? No, no. God, the guy sold like $1 million worth of merchandise. There were so many like Penta masks in the crowd, and I mean, there were definitely older ones from AEW, like the Joker Penta and stuff like that. They had a lot of those, but there were a ton of people wearing his new samurai mask with the removable face and stuff. Like there was so many people wearing that thing. He sold a couple $1 million of merchandise from my understanding. So is one bad match going to kill Penta? No. Did the promo after save it to where a lot of people forgot how bad the match was? Yeah, I did in the moment because in the moment I was moved as a Mexican American. I was moved. So um it was a good and bad debut. Did Chad Gable work his ass off and look good and try like hell to make Penta look good? Hell yeah, love Chad Gable.
Of course
Uh,
you did.
I
That's who
don't.
Chad is. He's got a lot of integrity.
Yeah, I don't think I'll ever say too much bad about Chad Gable. He's good at being an asshole, which is what he's being right now. He's got a good stable of wrestlers. I really wish that they would let Ivy Nile and the Creed kids wrestle more because they're all very good. But I don't say a lot bad about Chad Gable because he does go in there and tries like hell to make you look good, even despite yourself sometimes. Um, so yeah, moving on, Sheamus versus Ludwig Kaiser was a pretty good match. I mean, it was. I don't think it was actually the normal level of banger that Sheamus puts on. I mean, for being the guy who puts on bangers. But Braun Breaker kind of came out afterwards, and him and Sheamus. It looks like him and Sheamus are going to keep going with this Intercontinental title thing. I really want Sheamus to win the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania. It is the only title that's eluded him. So I think that might be where we're headed. By the look of the booking, that is where we're headed. But will WWE pull the trigger on it earlier, like at like Mania or at like Rumble or Elimination Chamber? Probably. WWE bungles things like this. They have a history of denying people their moment. You know, as much
I
as they
don't
give
know.
people their moment, they do have a history of denying people their moment, especially in front of their own crowd.
I
So
don't know. I see them putting Breaker in the Rumble, so I don't think he's going to defend the belt at Rumble.
I hope that's how it works.
I mean, I think that a guy that's as exciting as he is and explosive as he is could have a really good showing in a Royal Rumble, especially if they put somebody like Goldberg in there who also does a spear. Like they could have like a little moment or something like that. I don't know. I feel like he'd probably bet. I mean, now that these cards have two Royal Rumble matches on them, there's not that much room on the show for other stuff. Do you really think they're going to put an Intercontinental title match on there? I don't think so. I think they're going to put one or both of them in the Rumble. And if you want to move this thing along, I would put both of them in there, have them have a spot, have Sheamus be the one to eliminate him, and have that uh, justify him getting the title shot.
Sure. I mean, I hope that's the way it works out. That sounds good to me, actually. Um,
Sometimes the simplest stuff is what works, like what
so
works best.
so last week on Raw, after Rhea beat Liv, Dom tried to like come in the ring and hug her and like ask for forgiveness and stuff, and she took him to Dick Kick City and then gave him a riptide, which is all glorious. I love it. Um, this week they go back to the Judgment Day, and of course I'm already groaning because sorry guys, I don't like the Judgment Day. What do you want? Um, but this week, like he's trying to apologize. She's being very dismissive of him. He's about to go back to being a simp, basically, is what it looks like. At least until she makes him go away or whatever. But amongst that, the two of them having a rift in their relationship, we've Finn and JD and Carlito and everybody's kind of milling around, and they're all acting like they hate each other. I normally would be praising the Lord that this is the end of the judgment day and finally, and I don't have to say these negative things every week. But I somehow think that that's somehow going to be bungled and we're going to have to live with them for like 4 more months at least. So it looks like we might be getting inklings that the judgment day is going to break up, but that happened before. Finn totally betrayed Damien and we still had judgment day. So I don't know how they're going to do this.
I mean, I mean, what I would like to see. I mean, I wouldn't watch, but what I would like to see, just for the sake of maybe just for one show, maybe have like the last gasp of the Judgment Day. See uh, Dominic try to plead with Finn, be like, come on, let's do this. Let's make one more run at the tag belts, you and me, and then manage to finagle himself a tag team title shot. And they're walking to the ring for their title match, and he'll have said, yeah, I even came up with a name for us. Just wait until you get there. It'll be great. The ring announcer is Lillian, right? Lillian came back, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. That makes it even better because I want to hear this come out of her mouth because it'll be funny as hell. Be like, and Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio, Finn Dom,
Oh God.
and have have Finn just like bug eye, like what, and then just completely get out of there, just abandon Dominic to get completely crushed by the champions, and then have that be the absolute end of it. I
Oh,
think that would be hysterically fun.
fantastic. In other news of factions that I don't like, and we talked a couple weeks ago about why I don't really like factions, or why I think there's too many. Pure Fusion Collective is there doing an interview. Zoe Stark says she's going to win the women's intercontinental title from whoever wins it, and then Sonya has to like step in and be like, "No, one of us will win it." So it looks like there might be some tension there already between them. Good. I hate your name, and I don't like your stable. So let's get rid of that, please. Post haste, expeditiously, Mister Triple H, sir.
I don't mind the gimmick behind the reasoning behind the stable. They're all like MMA fighter types. I get that. That might as well make a state. It's like a fight club.
Mhm.
I get that. That's fine. Yeah, the name sucks. It's the worst.
It's
It
just
is
the
the
name. They could
worst.
break up Pure Fusion Collective this week, bring them back next week, and just call them something else. I'd buy it.
You know what? You know what I would do? I would reuse the name that I wanted to use when they tried to. You remember when they brought in the women's revolution and they brought up what would be known as team what was it PKB,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, Paige, Becky, and Paige, Charlotte, yeah, PCB, Paige, Charlotte, and Becky, and they had to call themselves that because they originally called themselves the Submission Sorority, which is a great name.
It is.
But unfortunately, it was all already taken apparently by an adult website. So when you were to Google that, it wouldn't redirect you to where they wanted you to be redirected. So that was what they came up with. I thought that rename was stupid. The fact that they had to rename it, I understand. But you call yourself, you want to keep with the sorority theme, you want to keep with the submission theme, just name yourself like a sorority with Greek letters. Tau Alpha Rho. That's TAP. Tap.
Perfect.
Perfect, right? Just use that idea and rename these ladies that, and it'll be just as good on them as it would have been on Paige, Becky, and Charlotte.
Yeah. So after that, we have Gunther promo. He comes out. He's talking about everybody basically not being as good as he is. That's what he does. And Jay Uso interrupted him. But Gunther said, see, he basically okay. So he said, "I know what you're capable of, and it's a whole lot less than what I'm capable of." He's like, "And I'm going to expose you for what you really are, a really, really talented tag team wrestler."
There's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
He's like, "To you, main event is a nickname. To me, it's where I belong." And then Jey Uso was like, he got pissed off, of course, and he tries to hit Gunther. Gunther bails. And he gets on the mic and he's like, "On Saturday night's main event, you're going to respect me when I beat that ass and become world heavyweight champion." So that's what we got. We got Uso versus Gunther at Saturday night's main event, which
When is that?
that is the 25th. That's 6 days. So that's Saturday. Yeah.
Oh, they're doing these close together now. They
They
used to do
are.
them real far apart.
Yeah.
Huh,
Um,
cool.
then we had just a couple other things that I really liked. I mean, I've talked about the stuff I didn't like. Judgment Day, PFC. That's pretty much it. Um, Rhea Ripley had a promo, and she was interrupted by Nia, so it looks like we might get Nia and Rhea. I'm not really into that. I kind of want Nia to go away for a little bit. But it wasn't a bad promo, and they usually have pretty good fights. They don't really call them matches because Nia really hits people. So they usually have pretty good fights. Sami Zayn wrestled The Miz after The Miz mouthed off to him earlier in the night. Um, Zayn basically just delivered him an ass whooping. I mean, Miz kind of got squashed. But Sami Zayn did win with a Blue Thunder Bomb, which hasn't happened recently that much. So we got to win.
Simon Miller will be incredibly
He
surprised.
was.
Or I
I
bet he
watched
was anyway.
the next day and he was ecstatic. Let me tell you.
New
Um,
year, new me, asshole.
right. And then we had the Women's Intercontinental Championship match. It did not get the time it deserved. It was like sub 9 minutes, I think. But it was gnarly. Dakota Kai got like, oh, she got like head and arm suplexed um off the apron onto the floor, like release, just boom, like, and it looked nasty.
Ugh.
Um, really good match. They both went really hard with each other. Like you could tell that they were, doing it, really putting their all in there. Despite one of them knowing that they weren't going to win this match. And Lyra Valkyria wins. So Lyra Valkyria is our very first Intercontinental Women's Champion, and that's a big old up.
Good for her.
Just them having more women on all that says to me is that there's going to be more women on the show. Um, so good. Raw was really good. It moved really fast. They went about 2.5 hours. Um, but it was just the right amount of time. It was good.
Time, because
Yeah.
yeah, like with it being on streaming, having like a set time necessarily. I was wondering how long they were going to have them go. So
Yeah. But it was good. It was a good show. All over. I mean, we got a lot of really good announcements for the Rumble. We got some good kind of moving forward stuff. Uh, but other than that, it was good. So I think we're able to move on to the shine.
all right, all right, all right. All right. So the shine is up to me, and that is AEW Dynamite this week. First of all, I wanted to say I can't remember the name of the venue, and I feel so bad about it that they were at from Cincinnati. But this venue was awesome. It was great to see them go to another like cool, unique looking venue. Like they should be searching. I was talking about it on with somebody on Blue Sky the other day. If they're not going to be able to fill like a medium sized arena to capacity, go to these smaller, weird, unique venues. Like I love the Manhattan Center. I've been to, I've seen, what was it? I saw an ROH show at the Hammerstein Ballroom, and it's a great venue. I love old, weirdly, weird venues like that with, interesting architecture and stuff like that. Go to those places because it not only makes your show look different, it not only makes your show louder because the smaller building with a packed house will make it seem louder and more interactive and gives it that indie feel, but all the good part of the indie feel, not the bad part of the indie feel. But also, if you can't compete with the 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 production values, the least you can do is from a visual standpoint of what you can put on the screen, make yourself stand out by going to the cool looking venues, the smaller ones, but the cool looking ones. Like their upper decks were like, it was like 2 floors, kind of like the Manhattan Center was with like their multiple floors. But like there was like a cage almost like around it as a barricade. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it except that it looks rad and that I want to go there. If I'm ever in Cincinnati, I want to see some kind of show there because that venue rocked. So shout out to them for finding that place and for that place for being that place. Show opened up with Kenny Omega versus Brian Cage. Brian Cage is underrated. I know we say that about a lot of guys, and especially in AEW where like everybody seems to be super duper talented. But like Brian Cage is a guy who probably, if he wasn't like 5'11", he probably would have been called to WWE and pushed like as a mega star simply on the fact that he was a body guy. But he can also wrestle really, really well and is super impressive in all the things that he does. Perfect like opening opponent for Kenny in his first match back in AEW.
Mhm.
And of course, he had a great match with Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Kingdom, or not Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Dynasty.
Yeah.
But this was, this was a different match. It wasn't to that level. Kenny always kind of goes into a different gear when he's in Japan, but uh, like this, I mean, this was great. It told a great story. There were shenanigans, sure, but I mean, I thought like the big spot of the match was like right before break when they he Cage press slammed Omega onto the announce table, and they sold the table not breaking it. Oh, it's a solid oak table, so it's like okay, all right, I'll buy in. But like the point of it was for it to not break so that it would be more damaging to Omega's stomach, which they worked. They worked the whole match. He sold it the whole match. It was good. It was probably about what 12 minutes or so, 12, 13
Yeah.
minutes. Good stuff. I don't think Cage looked out of his element. I don't think Cage looked like you knew that Omega wasn't going to win, or wasn't going to lose in his comeback match.
Yeah.
But Cage never looked weak,
No.
and I think that's important. If you want to give a guy a gimme match, you put him against you put him against somebody who's a known lights observer, let's say. Uh, but I mean, Brian Cage is not that. He and we'll find out later during the hot tag that he hasn't lost any momentum. They're still building him in the tag division. This is good. This is a great opener. Afterwards, the Callis family comes down, and Will Ospreay comes out to even things out when Fletcher and uh, pardon me, Archer come down. But then Takeshita shows up and he tips the balance. And so and it was great too because Callis gets some shots on the way out. And yes, I think it was Fletcher who pulled him off. It's like, no, come on, we beat him up for now. Let's go and regroup. But yeah, Osprey and Omega kind of give looks to each other and stuff like that. It's like, okay, this is gonna happen. We're gonna get this amazing mega tag team, at least for a little while against the Don Callis family, and I am here for it because I believe that Will Ospreay is the best currently working full time wrestler, and Kenny Omega is certainly in that conversation as well. Then you've got the talent in the Don Callis family. I think people forget how good individually each one of those guys are because they're associated with Don Callis, and he's a heat electromagnet. So but every single one of those guys in that stable is a stud. Like every single one of them.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get some really good wrestling out of this feud. So even though, yes, you're picking up right where you left off over a year ago when Kenny had to go out due to diverticulitis. Yes, we're just continuing this thing with Ospreay and Fletcher. But you know what? The matches are going to be incredible. I'm here for it. Love it. Um, so other stuff that I liked. The Hurt Syndicate. Oh yeah, MVP came back, and he looks as good as he ever did, and it was great. I gotta say, for being up against Mark Briscoe and the World Tag Team Champions, uh, it's not to say that Private Party and Mark Briscoe didn't put in the work, but they got massacred by the Hurt
Yeah.
Syndicate in this match. They got and you know what? I'm not necessarily against that because if you're going to be hot shotting this tag team into contention right away, you need to make them look credible. And it doesn't do MVP any harm to get involved in a match like this as a wrestler because then it informs his manager work. Oh, this is a guy you really, this isn't just a guy who pulls hair behind and trips up a guy behind his back. This is a guy who, if you're on the outside with him and the referee's not looking, could really mess you up.
Yeah.
And there's not really that many managers, especially not in this era, that you can really say that about. Like, don't get me wrong, I love your Bobby Heenans, I love your Paul Heymans and stuff like that, but they were never physically imposing.
No.
MVP is physically imposing. So a match like this goes to add that little extra wrinkle when he's in the manager role in future matches, where it's like you don't want to be on the outside with MVP. Like
Mhm.
that's a bad place to be. It's not an annoying place to be. It's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
So I thought that this match served multiple ends, and I like when matches serve multiple ends like that because it means it's paying attention to the details. So yeah, like the match itself was nothing like it was short. It wasn't it got a commercial break, but it was pretty short. It didn't. I thought it. I honestly I thought it served to really put over the Hurt Syndicate, and that's not a bad thing. I do hope that they lose to Private Party at least in their first match, just to give Private Party a little bit longer reign and to put them. If they beat them, at least if it's not too fluky, it still puts Private Party in the place in the hierarchy that they should be, and not just as a bunch of guys that got ragdolled, like guys that were lucky to be there. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't give the belts to the Hurt Syndicate immediately. I do think that it's inevitable, though.
Yeah.
I think with this kind of booking, you kind of have to. Like it's in the cards. I don't know how quick it'll be. It's coming though.
Yeah.
Um,
Pretty obvious.
Oh, I forgot about Ricochet came out earlier, and he gives clips of his attack on Swerve and blah blah blah, and he did the meme thing where he looked at the camera and he pointed behind him. That was brought up on Blue Sky. Like, oh my god, he did the meme thing, and um, I don't want to praise Ricochet for reasons we already discussed last week, but I will praise Prince Nana for coming out. Swerve's music hits and Ricochet's all like bug eyed, looking at the ramp, seeing it, waiting for him to come out. But Nana comes behind him with the chair and times it perfectly to the beat of the song, hits him with the back in the chair, and then does the dance. Like
I
Prince
laughed
Nana,
so hard. I laughed
it,
so hard at this.
he's the best.
I
Protect
love it.
Prince Nana at all costs.
Right?
I loved him ever since he was with the Embassy in Ring of Honor, the original incarnation of it. I thought he was great in that role, and he's somehow gotten, just even better. Like, he was probably lucky to get hired when they bought ROH because I don't think he was even working with ROH at the time. I think
I'm not sure.
I think Tony just liked him and liked the Embassy, and so he brought him back in, and it turns out to be one of his best hires. Like the dude is consistently entertaining every time he shows up. Love Prince Nana, and then that just serves to set up Swerve. He's got that big old chain again, and he looked like he was gonna absolutely destroy Ricochet, but he gets out of the way right away. I thought that was effective. Ricochet got a ton of heat. Nana got a ton of cheers. Swerve got a ton of cheers. People are looking forward to Ricochet getting his,
Yeah.
and that's really all you want, right? If
Right.
you
Yeah.
know, um, all right. So I'll skip over this for a minute and we'll come back to it. But the part that I didn't like was up next.
I know what you're
That
talking
being said, yeah.
about.
That being said, I was really looking forward to Hook versus Christian Cage. Um, and it was not what I wanted. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. But because of we'll come back to my complaints about it at the end of this segment. But what I did like about it was that Hook was pretty much just whooping Cage. Christian
Yeah.
Christian was getting the scalded dog treatment, and like I loved that. Especially he's so smart and he's been around so long. Christian Cage knows exactly what he's doing, and he's so selfless in there. And he always has been, really. But like,
Mhm.
especially at this stage of his career, he should be selfless and he should be letting the younger talent just whoop him, just absolutely destroy him, get that heat on him. And then sure, yeah, the win was by DQ. Like, Hook dives, gets the red rum in the center of the ring, but like, like there was all sorts of uh what's his face, patriarchy shenanigans that just caused the DQ. It was, you know, it was what it was. You know, they don't do DQs often, but if you're, in AEW, and that's what a lot of people like about AEW, but if you're going to do one, do it with the guy that people already hate so that they can put the heat on him instead of the decision.
Yeah.
Um, and then patriarchy looked like they're gonna, because Shibata was there too on the outside trying to do his best to hold off traffic, but he couldn't quite make up the numbers. They took him out, and they looked like they're gonna give Hook a concerto, and then Samoa Joe comes back. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, let's go, baby! Samoa Joe is finally back after way too long. He wasn't even injured. They just didn't like. I mean, he went off to film something, right? Like,
Yeah, he was filming
and
for metal.
I think, I mean, that shoot couldn't have been for that long. So they were probably just waiting to pull the trigger on the right point in the storyline to come back. Don't know why he's not going after Jericho, the guy who put him through a wall with a freaking forklift. But
Here's the guys trying to kill his paycheck.
yeah. So I mean, but I mean, I'm glad that this, Samoa Joe and his murder associates are back together.
Yeah.
Uh, I need them to have a name though. I need that stable to come up with a name. Like they should be the Nation of Violence, but the renewed Nation of Violence. But I'm pretty sure TNA still owns that name, so they probably would have to work something out with them, which would be probably really difficult now that they have signed a
Associates.
multi-year deal with WWE partnership, which means that TNA, sorry guys, is finally gonna die.
I don't know.
That's,
I still don't know they're gonna
I
die.
mean, they killed the Brit rest scene. They killed Evolve. Like that's what they do. Like they co-opt people. They grab their best guys. It's just a version of what Vince did in the 80s. Gobble up all their best talent without really compensating those territories for their losses, and then just left them to die.
Yeah.
So I mean, this isn't out of character. This is who they are. Um, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. Uh, the one that I really wanted to see though was up next. The one that I was waiting all really 3 weeks to see was the women's casino gauntlet. And with the exception of the length, which you didn't get enough of,
No.
the match itself still delivered though. Like with the women who were in it, they probably were upset about the time as we were, but they were determined to maximize their minutes, and I think they did a really really good job. Chris Statlander came out as number one. Immediately, they put her up against Jamie Hayter, number two. But although I was really disappointed because like they didn't immediately start just destroying each other. Like you got the two women in your division that you up to this point had put over as the most powerful women in your division, and they're doing headlocks. Like why? Like no, just no. Go after each other. Yeah, go for the quick pins. Sure, that's the gimmick of the match. You got to try and get in while you can. But like, I don't know. Like, what's the deal, man? Like, why are you not trying to destroy each other? And then out comes Megan Bain at number three, who I guess has done some AEW stints, but like some dates before, but in years past. But I don't really remember her. Sorry. Um, my buddy George says that she's Joey Janela's girlfriend. Uh, she's huge. She's enormous. She's tall. She's statuesque. She's got a great presentation with like the Valkyrie thing going on. Like her presentation was awesome.
Yeah.
Wasn't super impressed with her in the ring. But maybe it was just the moment, and maybe it's just because she was probably in the ring with a bunch of ladies that she hadn't worked with in a while. I don't know. I mean, it's a super complicated, intricate gimmick match. So I mean, I'll gladly let it slide. I don't think that I can judge her work based on this one match alone. I need to get her in a singles match with somebody of significant length and see, okay, do I like this this girl's work or not. But
Yeah.
I didn't think I saw enough of it to really make a judgment call, so I'm not going to make one. Uh,
Fair.
Julia Hart was in. Uh, she's been so good since coming back.
Yeah.
Love her. She did some spooky stuff. Oh, Willow was in there at one point too, and she looked great because she always does. She had like a little moment with Statlander that was like, yeah, it was like old times kind of. But what I will say is that they probably should have leaned on that more as a character point. Be
Hmm.
like, instead of just having them looking at each other and smiling, acknowledging more that this was a reconciliation moment, or that it's like I'm smiling and then I'm reconsidering smiling at you because, oh wait, I'm still mad at you. Like they were still smiling at each other right before they went up from that spot and started hitting each other. That was more like a competition. It was the same complaint that I had last week with the triple threat match. Like they didn't treat it like there was still like Willow still had an animosity toward it. They just treated it like competition. And
Yeah.
it's like, I wanted more from Willow, which is I hate saying that because I love her so much. But like I wanted her to be more angry and hurt by Stat's past actions and not be so ready to work with her again. But I mean, the work was good. Uh, Harley Cameron came in with her brand new banger theme music, and she was super over. People loved her. She was great. She played into the finish, which if I mean that doesn't surprise anybody because Harley Cameron doesn't have a single win in AEW yet. So the fact that she was in here to take the pin should not surprise anybody. But they got to it in a cool way, I think. Like for as soon as Julia came into the ring, Julia and Hayter were all over each other, in and out of the ring and everything. Like anytime they had an opportunity to beat the crap out of each other, they did. But by the time that and Tony Storm had come in at this point too, and she was doing doing her amnesiac, not amnesiac thing, and it was working, and Harley Cameron comes out, and she looks like she's going to she walked up to Hayter and got a hate breaker, the Uranagi backbreaker. But Cameron ducks the haterade, and Julia Hart misses her, the black mist in the face. Uh, we don't. It didn't look like it was meant for anybody else either. It looked like it was supposed to be the Cameron on purpose, which I think was an interesting story beat. Like, like I don't think that was meant for Hater. It didn't look like it was. Like the angles were all wrong. Julia, who's very good with her facial expressions, looked very deliberate. Like I think this was in storyline in kayfabe. I think this was intentional. Um, but yeah, she got the mist in her face. Uh, uh, Northern Lariat. But Storm is here. Like she crawled and she rolls up Julia for the win. Like so, she kind of Julia looks really strong because it looked like she was in a position to win the whole thing off the mist and the Northern Lariat. But she gets rolled up by Tony, and the right woman goes over to face Mariah May in Australia. Ultimately, it was good. It could have been better, but I thought and it could have been longer, and it could have. Honestly, I would have, if I was booking, I would have booked it to be like 30, 40 minutes and open up the show and showcase nearly everybody in the division. Like this was a showcase match, and to a degree, it worked. But I would have preferred it to be more. Give me more. That's what I want. I want more. That's all. That's all I want, really.
Yeah.
Main event was Moxley versus Hobbs for the world title. Uh, Hobbs looked amazing in this. I mean, you can really tell that Mox loves this kid because he went out of his way to make Hobbs look like he could hang with the best in the world, and he did. Like it was great. And showed a vicious side that baby faces don't usually get to, but it really works against Mox because sometimes if Mox is going to go there, you're going to have to go there just to defend yourself. But he went all Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield on the
Oh
guy and
God, that was
bit his ear, like gushing blood from behind his ear, which I'm sure was a cut. But the blood vessels back here on your ear in that area are they're so small and thin and numerous that it doesn't take much
as I
back there.
understand, he took out
Yeah,
a ring and it was planned. Like he told him to rip it out.
that I didn't know.
And
It's
that
very
that
Mox.
amount of
That's
blood, um, for sure. But
that is
that was
very John Moxley. This is a guy who nearly had his nipple ripped off in a ring before. And yeah, if you read his autobiography, he'll tell you that story. Um, yeah, it was yeah, there was a lot of blood. That puts a new wrinkle. I didn't know any of that stuff, but yeah, it was like poof. It was bloody. It really put Hobbs over as like this just killer baby face. They've gone out of their way to make him look pretty darn good since his return.
yeah,
And this certainly contributed to that. Um, Finish came with shenanigans. Marina cracks Hobbs in the face with the briefcase behind the referee's back. And, 1, 2, paradigm shift gets kicked out of. What?
yeah,
On Dynamite with a guy who is not anywhere near the main event scene, like at any point in his career, that's an endorsement.
hmm
That's an endorsement. But he still loses when he's choked out by the Bulldog
yeah,
with the Bulldog choke. But that's okay because he didn't tap out. He passed out, which in kayfabe terms is heroic instead of cowardly. That's not the way it works in the real world, people. If somebody has you in a submission hold, please tap.
yeah.
If you
That's
can't escape, please tap. Save your arm. Save your brain cells. Do whatever you have to do to protect yourself. There's no shame in submission in the real world. But in wrestling, tapping is cowardly.
yeah. You better.
So after the match, Death Riders jump Hobbs and uh, they rip the knee brace off and stuff like that. But Rated FTR makes the save, although it took way too long to get
Way
there.
too long.
Way, 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 way too long. It was like what were they doing? I somebody on Blue Sky posited that maybe the Death Riders had laid a trap for them in the form of old Bret Hart matches, and they were just watching those and got distracted. Uh, but yeah, uh, but yeah, it was ultimately it was a good show. I do have to circle back around though and talk about that segment.
Oh, I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated.
Um, I'm gonna reiterate what I said about Jeff Jarrett on my TV. I don't want him there. I don't want him there. And this stuff, this kind of stuff was not what I had in mind when I said that. Okay. To be clear and to be fair, this kind of stuff was not what I intended, but it doesn't hurt my case.
Oh, no,
Yeah. This in the year of our Lord 2025, we don't need to be making jokes about each other's mothers being sex workers. I don't think that's appropriate.
I
I
really.
don't think it's necessary. I don't think I think there are better ways to get heat. But if it was a heel that was doing it, it would be fine as long as they got their comeuppance for it later. I'm not opposed to that. This was the baby face doing this. The baby face absolutely should not be making your mother's a horror jokes. Okay? Absolutely not.
And your girlfriend is a whore joke.
Oh yeah. Like yeah, that too. Like it it was it was trying. It was one of those segments that as a wrestling fan, if I was introducing somebody to wrestling for the first time with this show, I would be embarrassed.
Yeah.
I would be embarrassed. Oh, it's not usually like this. Like
Oh yeah, I can't. Oh,
I
oh.
this segment too took way too long. It actually took longer from front to back than the women's gauntlet took in its entirety by
Yeah,
about a minute. They could have cut this to a 5 minute backstage segment or whatever, given more time to the women's gauntlet. They also could have cut down if they were going to go with the DQ finish for Christian Cage and Hook. They could have made that a lot shorter too. If they were just going to go with the DQ anyway, they could have just done the first part of the match where Hook was just whooping him and have Cage immediately get disqualify himself. And in fact, that would have served his character even more as a coward. And then given more time to the women's match that way too. So I just there was some really good stuff on the show, but it was good. The good was really good, but this was not. The bad was real bad this week, and I don't want to focus on the bad, but like everybody is talking about this segment for a reason, and
mhm.
I'm not going to shy away from it. It was
No,
bad. We should not do anything like this again, and we should move on.
yeah,
Should
yeah,
move
it was
on.
terrible. I don't say this that
Leave it
often.
in the past. Leave it
Yeah,
in the past. Don't bring it up again. Don't put it in any video packages for the eventual matches they're going to have. No, don't do any of that. Pretend it didn't exist. Move forward.
yeah. I don't say this that often these days because a lot of stuff is good. This was the drizzling shits, y'all. If you need an example of what the drizzling shits are in wrestling terms, this segment for 12 and a half or 13 minutes was the drizzling shits all over Wednesday night.
And for the record, it wasn't in the delivery, it was in the content.
It was in the content.
It
Yeah.
was in the content.
Both of
This
them
kind of stuff,
way better than that.
yeah, they are. And this is where they decided to go. I don't know whose decision that was, but it was not a decision that was an intelligent one or a wise one. And I hope they veer away from that as quickly as possible and just let it be. And that's all I'm going to say about it
Mm.
because I don't want to dwell on it.
Yep.
With that said, what time is it? It's time for the morning, baby.
It's time for the Morton. All right. Now it's time for our Morton spot. This week is SmackDown. And I'm just going to say this up front so I don't have to be so negative throughout the thing. 3 hour SmackDown. I'm not a fan of 3 hours of SmackDown. Please take it back to 2 hours of SmackDown. Um, they just they could do everything they did here in 2 hours. That's all I'm saying. Um, so we started off with Rey Mysterio. They're in San Diego, so hometown, big pop. He's interrupted by first of all, he declares for the Royal Rumble. So there we go. Rey
There
Mysterio
it is.
now also in the Royal Rumble. And Kevin Owens interrupts him and says, I respect you more than anybody else in this business, probably. And I want my first one-on-one match with you to be for the title at WrestleMania. So when you win the Royal Rumble, pick me. And then Ray has to be like, but Kevin, you're not the champion, which sends Kevin into a tizzy. And he tries to attack Rey Mysterio and gets powdered. And then later on, Rey Mysterio asks for and gets their very first one-on-one confrontation tonight, not at WrestleMania.
Is it possible that they've never had a match before?
No idea.
They've been in the same company for a long time now. That's crazy.
Never wrestled. That it's weird. So then we have women's tag team championship match: Naomi and Bianca versus Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. Um, it was a good match. Really solid, 7.5 or 8 minutes. Bianca and Candice had some really good in-ring chemistry. I think that would be something that they could maybe explore further in the future. It would be really cool. Um, but Belair and Naomi take the win. I didn't think the titles were going to change hands here, and they did. Especially with Nia showing up on Raw. I guess the transfer window's still open. I don't know what's going on with that. Um,
One
so
of these
now,
days they'll make that brand split actually stick.
yeah. And then they had Nick Aldis backstage saying, Cody Rhodes getting cleared. And Nick Aldis tells him, hey, there has to be an addendum to your contract with Kevin for the match at Royal Rumble. It's going to be a ladder match. And they both have to sign this addendum, but they haven't told us what it is. And I guess next week they've got to relinquish their titles, both belts, to be suspended above the ring, and then sign this addendum before Nick Aldis will let this match take place. So I don't know what the addendum is. They didn't say. Um, well, I guess we'll find out. I guess it's going to be like some kind of story plot or something. Um, then we had Jimmy Uso versus Carmelo Hayes. Um, Jimmy wins by DQ. I mean, it was a pretty good match going, but then the new bloodline got involved because, of course, they did. And they screwed Jimmy out of the match. And I mean, Jimmy wins, but they interfered. So, um, it was weird. I don't know. I still don't really know what they're doing with the bloodline. And we'll talk
Yeah,
more.
I thought they settled this last week.
I thought they did too.
Like,
And we'll talk more about this here in a minute because there's more to it. So then we have Los Garces versus the Motor City Machine Guns. Um, oh, wait, hold on. I forgot about this part. So it was later, but it was like right after the match. So Jimmy takes the beating. Then Solo shows up and he didn't say anything. He just leaves. And then Tonga and Fatu are just like, what's going on? Like, what the hell? And then Fatu picked up the mic and talked about like how he's just getting started. And then LA Knight shows up, but they get the upper hand on him because it's 2-on-1. And then Braun Strowman shows up, but Tonga pulled Fatu out of the ring and they kind of took off. But then
hmm.
they announced the match for next week, a Saturday night's main event, uh, Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu. So
Okay.
I don't know what's going on here. I just don't know. Solo didn't say anything. So what's going on? But then we had that tag match where we got Los Garces and Motor City Machine Guns. Pretty Deadly showed up, tried to help the Garzas, but they were unsuccessful. Shelly and Saban take the win. It was probably like 7 or 8 minutes. Not really anything spectacular, Skull and bones for the win. Typical. I mean, at this point, it's bad that the Motor City Machine Guns matches are getting repetitive already, but they are. Um,
Hmm.
but it wasn't unenjoyable. It just I'm pretty sure I watched that same match against DIY 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah.
here we are. So we'll see that, that we'll see that Fatu and Strowman having the match is really the best thing that came out of this, like 15 minutes. Then we had Piper Niven versus BFAB. Niven picks up the win. This was only like 4 minutes or so. Um, Definitely not enough time, but I mean, it was a good match, but I was like, oh, it's over. What? Like, it's already over?
Hmm.
Like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't feel like either of these people have been beat up enough for this to be over. Like, especially knowing what I know about BFAB and Piper and having seen them be in like, ladder matches and dumpster matches and crazy shit like that. Like, why why would I think that they're gonna go out in 4 minutes? Like that's the thing that kind of bothers me about the way they treat the women's division more than the men's, but the men's it happens in the men's division too. Or like you fully know that this guy or this girl will take a table bump and bleed, 3 pints of their own blood onto the canvas and still kick out of the third sharpshooter, the third like lariat or whatever combo, whatever, the third finisher. They're like they'll the links they'll go to. And then like on a random Monday night, they get beaten 45 seconds or like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
And you're like,
there's not the consistency isn't there.
no,
And
it's
I mean, to be fair, that's pervasive in a lot of wrestling. It's not just WWE. I think it's just um, more prominently. It's more evident in WWE because they are the biggest brand, and so that's the thing that people think of most. But yeah, they've always kind of had this kind of, I don't know, big match syndrome, I
yeah,
guess you could call it. People will elevate themselves, if there's something on the line a lot of times, but then they'll lean on well, I mean, anybody can get knocked out and they get, by any given punch or whatever in a real fight. Why, that, I feel like that's in a scripted environment. You can, you can do that and lean on that as an excuse, but you should do so rarely. And when you do, make it a point that that's a part of the story.
yeah,
Like, oh, I got caught, or oh man, what's happening to me? I'm losing in 3 minutes. I'm losing in 3 minutes now. Like, make it a part of the ongoing story. Don't make it like, oh, well, this is done. This didn't matter. Like make it matter.
yeah, yeah. I just don't like it when matches are really short, especially for the women. When like everybody else is getting 20 minutes, why are they getting five? You know, even if you have multiple matches, like they're still that's like 10 minutes total between two matches. Like give us more. They deserve more.
Yeah.
Um, so then we had Owens and Mysterio. Um, look, this was a good match. Both of these guys are super talented, but we know all of their spots on both sides, and that's how the match went. Okay. Owens got the win. Cool. Rey Mysterio's putting over younger guys, even though Owens isn't really a younger guy at this point.
No,
Uh,
he's closer to our age.
yeah, but Ray's putting people over that are younger than him. We'll go there. That'll be easier because I mean Ray's probably not offended that I'm like this guy's a 30-year veteran. That's a badge of honor. You're still in there doing crazy Hurricane Ranas and stuff. He still looks as crisp as he did in WCW. I hope the man doesn't doubt himself. He could probably do this for another 10 years. The way he's moving right now, he probably could.
Well, I
Um,
mean, I would hope so after having surgery on his left knee like 8,000 times.
yeah, that thing's got to be completely fake at this point.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, totally. But it should be like a bionic knee that he should
yeah.
be able to work on forever.
I mean, he should be able to. I mean, really look the way he's moving around, like he's a little bit stockier than he was in WCW or early WWE, but
Yeah, he put on a lot of mass to get to WWE.
just 100% still doing wraparound Hurricane Ranas and 619s, like in a way that I absolutely fucking cannot do at 42.
No,
Him at 50 something, I think. I'm not sure how old he is, but I think he's at least 10 years older than I am. So, I mean,
I'll look it up.
but he's still doing the work that you would expect Rey Mysterio to be doing. He hasn't really lost a step. He's
He's
working.
50.
Okay, so he's 50, but he's working
Yeah, he's 50.
safer. But he's not lost a step. So um, he put over Kevin. Kevin goes to show him some respect at the end, and then it's a ruse. He starts beating him up. Of course, then Cody Rhodes, who is cleared for competition now, shows up, and they get in a fight. And officials break it up. I want to give a shout out here. Every time the officials break up anything like on Raw or SmackDown, it doesn't matter. We get to see Jason Jordan, who has apparently
Yay! Yeah,
cannot wrestle, is now wearing a suit backstage at WWE and probably cashing a six-figure check every year to do pull aparts, which I love for him.
yeah. Good
Uh,
for him.
so yeah, that's awesome. I mean, the other day I noticed I was like, I see that guy every time they do pull aparts. Oh fuck, that's Jason Jordan.
Yeah, it's good to see that even though his career in the ring got cut short for somebody who was really a prodigy,
Mhm.
and who was just coming into his own as a character too. Um, it's good to see that the what was it, concussion? It was a really bad concussion, right? I think that put him on the shelf indefinitely. It's great to see that they still saw enough value in him to give him a job. Like a lot of places probably would have cut him loose at the end of it. They probably wouldn't cut him, but they probably would have let his contract run out, and be like, well, we can't use you,
Yeah.
in the ring, which would ultimately, honestly, be okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But they did an actual nice thing, and that should be commended, even if it was a Vince decision. Uh, you know, it's like that meme of the Onion art, the headlines like, "Oh, awful news! The worst person makes a good point." It's like, yeah, yeah. Sometimes Vince did okay things, sometimes that don't make up for the other things, but doing right by Jason Jordan was a good thing, and continues to be.
Yeah. So after that, we had a really nice tribute video to Bob Uecker, which I appreciated. His voice of baseball in my childhood. I
Yeah,
Uecker. It kind of made me sad, to be perfectly honest. Uh, but then WWE, I feel at this point, because I don't know if this aired differently for people who don't have like the commercial free Netflix. I don't know what happens during commercials on Netflix because I don't see commercials on Netflix at
I
all.
mean,
I see video packages when WWE means to show them to me. Sometimes where a commercial would be, sometimes because maybe they mean to stop right here and they're doing something or whatever. Usually when like they're putting up a cage or something, or like break
yeah,
down something crazy like that. That's usually when I'll see a video package. Um, but I, I don't know if other people saw this in a different order because of having commercials or not having commercials. So what I can say is that right here in between Kevin Owens and Rey Mysterio and the next match is where we got a return vignette for Charlotte Flair, which
oh,
I am unendingly happy about because I just said like last week, I would love Charlotte Flair to come back and feud with Tiffany Stratton. And I think that's exactly what's about to happen because we didn't get this Charlotte Flair vignette on Raw. It happened on SmackDown where Tiffany Stratton is champion. And it was kind of all about how Charlotte Flair has been like a 17-time world champion. So,
yeah,
or 16 or something. I don't know. I definitely
however many it is,
got as
yeah,
many as her dad at least, I think. So it's at least 16. Um, but right after that vignette is where we have Tiffany Stratton versus Bailey. Reason I
that's
say I think,
subliminal messaging.
yes, the reason I say I feel like they shot them in the foot for the users who aren't following. Um, it pretty clearly signaled to me that Tiffany Stratton and versus Charlotte Flair is the play, and it pretty
Right.
clearly also then subsequently signaled to me that Bailey was absolutely not going to win this match.
Yeah, yeah,
And it being Tiffany's very first title defense and the amount of time they let that damn Money in the Bank case cook and the many false flags of that they did with her. Because how many times
yeah,
was Nia just laid out somewhere and Tiffany?
yeah,
Like I felt bad for Nia. Like I'm like in kayfabe, Nia can't even take a nap
yeah.
because Tiffany's just standing next to her with that case, like
All
get your,
right.
I'm gonna get her. Like I oh man, poor Nia in kayfabe. No wonder she's mad and mean in the heel. She must be exhausted.
All the time. All the time.
So I mean, there was a lot of like false starts on that and all that. And I mean, every time she teased doing it, the crowd wanted her to do it. When she finally did, it was almost like they had done it false so many times, and it happened on just like a random SmackDown that like
Boy who cried wolf situation.
yeah,
Yeah.
like we were like, no, it's definitely not happening. And she's just teasing it. Oh shit. Oh shit. Like, oh, it
Yeah.
really is a wolf. Um, but either way, they shot themselves in the foot here, and I feel like it signaled to me at least. And I know a lot of like I'm not special. There are tons, thousands, millions of other people out there who have been watching wrestling for 40 years, as long as I have, and can pick this stuff out. It's not like a hidden language. I'm
Nope.
special because I've worked in the business. This is like I'm gonna
Yeah.
be very
It's
nice and not say what I'm thinking right now, but it's just very easy to
yeah.
understand things like this when
There's
we've been watching for long enough. Like where
yeah, that's all there is to it.
matters. And like people,
There's not much we haven't seen.
yeah. And people think it's not that deep, but you have to understand with people like Triple H and people like Tony Khan, it 100% is that deep.
Yeah, it's subliminal
It
messaging.
matters. This week on in or last week on NXT in the background of one of the promos or one of the through shots or something, Shawn Michaels was talking to someone like Roxanne Perez or somebody like that in the background of the shot. I guarantee you this week on NXT, something is going to happen where Roxanne Perez has had a, discussion with Shawn Michaels about X thing, and this is about to happen. Like, little shit like that matters in the Triple H era of WWE. It matters in the Tony Khan AEW. Shit is that deep. Wrestling is not as simple as some people want to place it in like this little box for simpletons. It's not the case, especially
No. Now, if you pay attention, for the record, just to go back for a quick sec, Wikipedia lists her as a 14-time world champion, but that's not including the 2 NXT title reigns she's had. So it kind of depends
She's
on
a
whether you
16
count
time.
that or not.
I don't care. No, that's a 16. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but the work level of the people that do win the NXT championship is never in question.
Well, I'm just pointing it out.
But no. I'm not mad at you or arguing with you.
Yeah.
I am just saying, like, if they're not counting that, that's some bullshit. Wikipedia, fix that.
So
That
question, slight diversion.
Uh-huh.
The WWECW title, was that a world title?
Yeah, it's a world title.
I always considered a world title. Kind of didn't seem like WWE considered a world
No, they
title.
treat it like one. No,
unless
but
unless it was Bobby Lashley holding it.
yeah, they're not. They didn't treat WWE CW like they're treating like the 2 titles now.
No.
For sure. No, but I mean, look, okay, if TNA world title counts as world title, NXT world title counts as world title. I'm sorry. I know it's just the NXT championship. It doesn't have world title in the name, but that is top title in a promotion that makes it a world championship. She is a 16-time world champion to me. I don't like to argue. And I especially feel like not counting it belittles the people in NXT and their work rate, which is often 1,000 times the work rate of people on the main roster.
Let's be real. Let's be real here. Regardless of whether they count that as a world title or not, she's still gonna get to 16 or probably 17.
We're getting 17,
even without the NXT title reigns. So it's gonna happen whether it takes 1 or 3 more title wins. Doesn't matter. It's happening.
I'd place $1,000 in Las Vegas right now. Right now. If I were sitting in Las Vegas at a sports book and needed like a sure thing, but maybe I don't need it to be like right now. Maybe I'm just looking for like a good investment. I put $1,000 in Las Vegas that in the next 10 years, that number is going to be at 3-0. 3-0.
Oof.
She's already won.
That's a lot.
What is she? 32? She's already
38.
Okay, she's 38. She's won 16 world titles already. She's even if we only want to count 14, she's 16 short. I absolutely believe that in the next 10 years she could put in another 16.
Do you think she wins the Rumble this year?
If Becky's not in it.
And if Becky is in it, you think she's taking it? Yeah.
She's been gone.
That would be
no fucking
either way. That's a repeat winner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Becky wins this year if she comes back. If she doesn't, I think Charlotte wins. But I actually think, no, I think Charlotte will come back at the Rumble. I don't think it gave a date when she's coming back. I think it's just, it's like,
I think you don't put somebody's name out there unless, this is what they did with Batista too. They hyped him up for 3 or 4 weeks before he made his return in the Rumble that everybody hated him winning because he wasn't Daniel Bryan.
Oh God.
They said he was coming back at the Rumble. They never said he was in the Rumble, but they implied it. I think that's what they're doing here with Charlotte, from what you described. I think that's what's going to happen. They'll probably save her to like it. Either she or Becky will be at number 30,
Yeah.
and I think it'll be Charlotte because I think Becky hasn't been 30. She took Lana's place at 28, but she was essentially the last one in the ring at the time because of the gimmick they pulled.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be Charlotte at number 30.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I think Charlotte's gonna be in it. I think that's probably where she'll return. I don't think she'll come back before that. With her not coming back before that though, that means that it'll probably be her and Tiffany Stratton at WrestleMania. I think they're going for that anyway. So we might get like if Becky comes back and wins, it'll probably be Becky and Rhea. However, I don't know how that works because Rhea's a mega face right now, and Becky would also be a mega face.
I mean,
Tiffany
here's
Stratton's
the
kind of a heel, and so is Charlotte. So how like it looks like Charlotte versus Tiffany's the move, but how?
Charlotte. They may be hoping that this time Charlotte coming back from such a long absence will actually make her a baby face
I'm gonna cheer her as a face as long as she's not being a bitch.
because she's been gone from the. When was the last time she was even in the ring? Like it's been like 2 years or something,
Before I
right?
started watching again for
Yeah,
this,
I think.
so and
Uh,
before I started watching again for this, so
yeah, she suffered an ACL, MCL, meniscus tear against Asuka.
yeah, it gets awesome.
Uh, so yeah, she's been gone for a year.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
year.
I think they'll bring her back as a babyface
That's long enough for
at
people.
the very.
She could be a good guy. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you can at least try it out. Like it tends not to work with her because she's not really that good at babyface. She's a natural heel.
I wonder if she's
Uh,
separated herself any from like her father's presentation.
I mean, I don't know. Like
I would kind of hope so.
I I would if this was a year ago, I would say there'd probably be no need because the WWE fandom tends not to care about that kind of stuff. And then you got last week when Hogan got booed out of the building, and
He
I'm not so sure anymore.
yeah.
I
LA was the
think more.
wrong place to bring his ass out. Sorry, guys.
Well, it's true, but at the same time, it was still surprising because the fandom is a little bit more casual and they're a little bit more forgiving
Yeah.
than the fandoms of other particular uh, wrestling organizations. Not just AEW. I mean, I know that's what people are thinking, implying there, but it's not just them.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I feel like maybe more people are coming around. So I don't know. Maybe she will. Maybe she won't. Maybe they'll finally put her and Andrade together on screen.
That'd be
That may
pretty.
be something that would give Andrade something to do if nothing else. And let's be real, she's a much bigger star than he is.
He's not really running much of a storyline, but he is
Yeah,
banger matches with.
I I like Andrade. Don't get me wrong. I think he's incredibly talented. Probably his own worst enemy, but like she's a way bigger star than he is. She just is. She
He
just is. She's got the name value.
he
She's
can
got the talent. She's got the history.
maybe not in Mexico, but definitely here. You
Oh,
know.
absolutely.
But yeah, for here for sure.
So it would probably benefit him probably more than it would her, although she would probably love working with her husband
Mhm.
regardless. And it would put a new wrinkle on her that we haven't seen before. We've never really seen her interact with a dude other
Yeah.
than her dad for a short stint. So,
I mean, she
like
talked about it.
maybe,
She said she
maybe
already has a
well,
poppy, and stuff like that when Dom was
yeah,
here,
but like
and I'd like
I
to
mean,
maybe see
it's
her with it.
different than to see it on screen.
Yeah.
Like Candace and Johnny Gargano are gold together when they're on screen, when they're interacting with each other. Like the way was great. The
Yeah.
way was fantastic. But even if it did include Austin Theory, who I think, like I said last week, shouldn't be within 100 feet of a school. But uh, point being that like even with his presence, that was a great stable, and it was mostly because of the chemistry between that husband and wife. So I think if there's something to be mined there from that, I think everybody would benefit, and it would give something of a new wrinkle to Charlotte because she's largely like her whole character has been the same for years. I'm the best to ever do this. I'm naturally talented. My dad's Ric Flair. Woo. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be the best, technical wrestler in the women's division. Blah blah blah. Like she's fantastic. Her character is one note, and I would like to see if maybe we can open that up and maybe add to her legacy as not just like one of the greatest, performers in the women's division of all time due to her ring work, but also due to her character work.
Yeah. But yeah, that aside, I mean, SmackDown was good this week. It just they could have done all of that stuff, except for give the women more time in 2 hours. And really, it would have just been the same. Like they could have done all of that stuff in 2 hours, even giving the women the same amount of time they gave them, which is not enough.
Yeah.
If you're gonna have a 3 hour SmackDown, please give the women at least whatever you plan. Add 5 minutes. That'll be a good.
Whatever you plan, add 15.
I mean,
15 would be
I would say
better.
that for AEW, but not WWE.
Absolutely,
Not
AEW.
the way
Please,
they're
please
showing
give us
it.
more.
And that's not a dig on WWE's women's division. It's just not the way y'all's weekly TV works. It doesn't work like AEW's works. AEW's weekly TV is built to showcase wrestling. WWE's is built to showcase good production and story. So even if the stories aren't good, that's still what they're geared towards more than the wrestling. So that's not a dig on y'all. It's just how it is with the production that y'all participate in. That's all.
Yeah.
And that's not me hating on it. I love them both for those exact reasons. Like I love it.
You're allowed to like one more than one kind of movie. You're allowed to like more than one kind of ice cream. You're allowed to like more than one kind of wrestling.
I like 32 flavors of wrestling because I just like wrestling.
Yeah.
I don't care
Give
what
it to me.
wrestling can be anything. Goofy wrestling for life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, SmackDown was good, man. I think that's about all I can really say. It was good. It's just long. 3 hours is hard to sit through, man. Period. But yeah, I think that's time for the
At
hot.
least when you're not expecting it, like you
Yeah,
expect that if you're paying for a show, like if it's a pay-per-view, you want to get your money's worth.
absolutely.
And it's a different thing where you're sitting down, you have a set of expectations for a show that is weekly that you're not generally getting big payoff matches for anyway. It's like, can't you just do this in less time? you know, there's so much content. Like, just shorten it up. Speaking of which, let's move on.
Yeah. So it's time for the hot tag.
All right, coming in with the hot tag is AEW Collision, Maximum Carnage. I forgot that the Dynamite was also Maximum Carnage. So I don't know if they had to pay Marvel the rights to use that or not, but here we are. They did a back-to-back taping, so they did Dynamite from the same venue that, and then the next day taped Collision. And I did look it up. It's from the Andrew J. Brady Music Center in Cincinnati. Um, I I would very much like to go there. I was just on their site. I'm like, oh wow, they're gonna get like Neil deGrasse Tyson. ZZ Top is gonna play there this year. Like, that's actually pretty cool. I saw Lacuna Coil was on there on the docket at some point. Like, so they're getting some acts. They've got an outdoor and an indoor. Obviously, indoor seats about 4,500 people, two balconies, wicked cool venue. Can't say enough about it, but I'm gonna have to cut it off there because I got wrestling to talk about. So, the show certainly lived up to its Maximum Carnage name by starting off the Texas Death Match.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Jeez Louise. This was awesome. This was pure amazing plunder, evil, violent, sick madness. I do not like the death match genre as a whole in general. I couldn't watch a whole show of it.
Right.
God bless those guys at CZW and the sicko fans who go there and want to watch an entire card of people destroying their bodies for their entertainment.
Right.
I can handle like one on a card when I'm primed for it. This I was primed for. This I was not disappointed for. Hangman Page continues to be like even though he lost his last Texas Death Match this against Swerve, this continues to be his match. He's not been in every single one of them that AEW has done, but he's been in most of them and he's won most of them. He won this one too against Christopher Daniels. This was purported to be behind the scenes kind of his swan song, his last match, his retirement match. Unofficially, officially, unofficially. What a way to go out, though. Christopher Daniels gets busted open real early, and then almost goes the full Muda the entire match. And you know what? Like, even though he took I think maybe he only got about 20% of the offense in this match. The offense he did get in was convincing. Like, he at one point, the biggest spot that he had, there was a barbed wire table that Hangman Page had set up, and he was going to superplex him through it. But Chris Daniels counters it into an Uranagi off the second rope through the barbed wire table, and then he hits the best moonsault ever, and then he does it again with the barbed wire board on top of it. There were parts of this match where it's like, oh man, I know he's not gonna win, but man, they're making him look real good. I don't know. I mean, this is Christopher Daniels. He's not a full-time wrestler. This is the first match that he's had on AEW television in years, I think. And like, it speaks to his mastery of the craft and why, in his 30s, he was on the independent scene referred to as Old Man Daniels because he just had so much experience by that point in his life. Like, if this was his swan song, I don't think it could have been better. Honestly, Chris Daniels, super underrated guy. The Indies would not, and mainstream wrestling on a platform, even though he was never really in WWE as a main roster for any length of considerable time, the style that he helped pioneer on the Indies in the early aughts, he was part of that crowd that really would eventually come to define the style that we see today of just some of the moves that he does, the spots that he does, the influences that he takes from Japan, just unsung a lot because he never spent a considerable length of time on the big stage, so to speak. But like, the dude deserves his flowers, and I think that this match definitely was a big old bouquet. Match ends, with Page, obviously beat him. He kicks out two best moonsaults ever. I think he even kicks out of the Angel's wings at one point, or he gets put down by it. I don't think. I think he beats the count. Is what it wasn't a pin because it's a Texas Death match. But he gets back up to his feet 8 count after the second BME with the barbed wire. But he eventually gets his hands on Daniels again, hits a tombstone on him on a chair, then a dead eye onto the chair. Then, and he's not done there. He hits a buckshot lariat onto the back of the head. So a northern buckshot lariat. And 10 count is mercifully a little fast by Bryce Remsburg. And this one's over. Afterwards, Hangman attacks him to still try and get the heel heat that he's looking for. Maybe he got it. I don't know. I'm still cheering for the guy. Like, I'm my guys are my guys. Like, you have to do something real bad in like real life to get me to boo you. Essentially, if I've determined you're one of my guys, and Adam Page is one of my guys. So, but yeah, they did the stretcher deal with Daniels too. Oh, that's right. Page returns and hits him with the Angel's wings, not one of his own moves. He hits him with his own move, with Daniels' own move.
Yeah,
and then they stretcher him out. Toni Storm is next after the break. She comes in and has a Tony time with Tony.
yeah.
She's evasive about her past with Mariah May, but she cuts a really cool babyface promo about, she's going to be going back to wrestle for the women's world title at the same building that she saw that her mom scripted and saved to be able to take her to her first wrestling show when she was a girl. And I thought, I mean, I already loved Tony Storm, but like this is just more endearing in a more, much more classic babyface, earnest way.
Yeah.
Um, I still think she's faking it. I think by the time they get back, like halfway through that match, Tony she'll be hulking up and she'll turn into timeless Tony again, like halfway through the match, specifically to psych out Mariah. I think in the weeks leading up to Grand Slam, you'll probably see Mariah kind of make fun of her a lot and kind of get away with it. And Tony will just kind of take it as the earnest babyface she's pretending to be.
Yeah.
And then by the time, like, at the climax of that match, she's going to, like, take off her shoe or something. Like, watch for the shoe. I think, and that's the way to go. That's what I want to happen. I think that's what they'll do. I think it's the right call. Um, Undisputed Kingdom versus Shane Taylor Promotions trios action. You know what? This is fine. You know why? Couple of reasons. Undisputed Kingdom as a trio boosts the trios division that is sorely in need of trios. I'm okay with it. I'm totally fine with that. Those guys obviously have natural chemistry with each other. That's great. This is a good. This is the first time the Infantry have been on AEW TV in a long, 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 long time. They look good even though they got their butts kicked. It was a good introduction, kind of reintroduction for them in this new gimmick with Shane Taylor Promotion. Lee Moriarty is a technical wizard. It's always great to see him on my screen. I love the techers. But honestly, probably the best thing was the post-match thing because Shane Taylor, who was ringside, managing his team, get ticked that his boys couldn't get the job done. And he takes out the entire Undisputed Kingdom. Boom, boom, boom. He looked like an enormous badass. Like I like Shane Taylor. I think he's got the same kind of authenticity that someone like an Eddie Kingston has. Like you believe everything that man says, and you believe that he believes it. Like he definitely has an aura of legitimate tough guy to him. Like I remember way back when we were doing the one episode where our Call in the Ring segment was modern day parallels to 80s wrestlers, and we chose Powerhouse Hobbs for Bad News Brown.
Yeah.
Due respect to Powerhouse Brown, to Powerhouse Hobbs, we made a mistake. It should have been Shane Taylor. It's Shane Taylor.
Okay.
It's Shane Taylor. He looked amazing in this. And the post match, like it took all three guys from the Undisputed Kingdom, and he got into it with Matt Menard on commentary, which called out TNT champion Danny Garcia, and it took all four of those guys with Matt Menard on the outside to beat back Shane Taylor. I don't think Shane Taylor's ever looked this good. I don't think he's ever been presented as well, and he didn't even have a match. I hope this is signaling a little push for him because I feel like he's been doing really good work that's not been getting recognized. I think most of it's been on ROH, which is probably why. But yeah, like I'm okay with the Shane Taylor push. Yeah, give that to me. I like the guy. Like I want to see him and Powerhouse Hobbs just have a big meaty man match. Kick the crap out of each other. Give it to me.
Yeah.
What's next? Oh, Murder Machines. We're going to touch on this. Yeah. This match versus Top Flight was essentially a squash match, which surprised the heck out of me. Like Top Flight is, I mean, they've never been the top tag team in the division, but they've been presented as threats, and they got obliterated. Everybody dies. Like they got a little bit of a hope spot at the end there, but like it wasn't enough. And Dante takes the powerbomb chokeslam combo. I mean, this one probably didn't even go 6 minutes if it went that long. So yeah, going back to my earlier comments about Brian Cage, he didn't lose anything by losing to Kenny Omega. He gonna be just fine. Afterwards, Action Andretti and Leo Rush came out to attack Top Flight from behind. So that thing is going to continue, which is good because it's a tag team feud that doesn't revolve around the belts. A division is made up of a whole bunch of stories, not just whoever's going for the belts. So it's good to see those stories continuing. Um, One of my favorite things of the night happened shortly thereafter, where Anthony Bowens breaks up the Acclaimed in a way that you don't see. Usually somebody turns on somebody, there's physicality, there's violence, but no, it was Max came out acting like a spoiled 13-year-old kid, completely all about himself, and Anthony Bowens and eventually Billy Gunn coming out there to call him on it and say, we don't need this. Nobody needs this. And then Caster's like, well, okay, and he pulled a bender. He's like, oh, I'm gonna go and create my own. What was
Playing
it?
with
What was it?
blackjack and
It was
hookers.
blackjack and hookers. Yeah, he did the blackjack and hookers thing. Except he didn't say that, but it
Yeah.
was the sentiment. He's like, oh, fine, I don't need you anyway. I'm the best wrestler alive. I got a jacket and I got a piece of paper that says it. Like,
Did he like file a
so it,
mark on that or something?
yeah, he filed a trademark, best wrestler alive. That's why
Or
he's able to
ageless
say it.
talent?
Well, I mean, he did it to get heat. Like Caster is an annoying guy, but he does it on purpose. He's a smart guy. He did it to get
Oh
heat
yeah, he's definitely being.
because he knows he's not the best wrestler alive, and everybody else knows he's not the best wrestler alive. So somebody who clearly isn't calling themselves that, instant cheap heat. He's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing.
What I think was really smart was Anthony Bowen setting himself up as the pride of AEW.
Loved that. I loved, and he brought back the 5 tool player thing too. So you
Mhm.
have 2 different ways to go with it. Whichever one hits better. I think you're right. I think they should go with the pride of AEW. Um,
And strap him up.
yeah,
ED
I
expeditiously.
I would like to see him in the TNT title scene against Danny Garcia. I think that match could be really good. I would honestly though, considering the nebulous worth in relation to each other these titles have, since we don't really know which one's number 2. Like we know the world title is the top title, but we don't really know where the other ones kind of fit in with each other. I would imagine the international title is probably number 2, considering who they have historically given it to and the amount of focus that it takes. But we don't really know because international technically is less than a continent, and the TNT champion is just a network. So you would think that that would be on the bottom, but the way that some people, it was originally the secondary one. So like, there's this nebulous, the list of guys who have held that kind of range where they are in the hierarchy historically. So like, I could still see him going. Like, I'd like to see the match of Bowens versus Okada. I think that could be really good, and I think that would be a really good push for Bowens if he could beat a guy like Okada for the belt. Oof, that strap a rocket to that guy.
Hmm.
So you have options, but I think you're going to have to settle things with Caster first. Just
Yeah.
because they broke up in a non-violent way doesn't mean this ends without violence. Um, but yeah, I thought that was great. It was a long time coming, and they did it in a way that you don't often see in wrestling. So definite thumbs up there for going the road less traveled. Uh, the match that was next was the Continental title, Okada versus Ishii, which I was really looking forward to. Tomohiro Ishii has steadily become one of my favorite guests on AEW television. I get really excited whenever he or Murder Grandpa show up on my screen. I'm like, I'm excited for them.
I'm all in.
Um,
Mhm.
Definitely. This was surprisingly short. Uh, I'm wondering if maybe this was cut short because Ishii got injured. Apparently, he did suffer some kind of minor injury during the match. Like for what it was only like 8 minutes. But I feel like you got all the hits, and with the hits of Tomohiro Ishii, since it's like heroic non-selling headbutts, chops, and throwing guys all over the place and being an angry bowling ball. Like I I'm not really upset about it. Like I wanted more, but I think it was probably cut short because the next match was a squash match that didn't need to happen. So I'm wondering if they were filling time, maybe. Like Dustin Rhodes versus Adam Priest was like a nothing match. Like what? I get that they added Dustin Rhodes into the thing with Jeff Jarrett a little bit. I didn't talk about that in Dynamite, but there was an extra segment with them where Rhodes said basically he was with Jeff against MJF. He wanted him, but like, so maybe it's just to remind him that he's there. But like this Matt, if there was a negative on this, it was this. Like, I love Dustin Rhodes. I think he's getting somehow better the older he gets.
Right?
Like it's incredible. Like the dude is ageless, but I don't feel like this needed to happen.
No, not really.
I mean, it was. I feel like this is maybe just time that was taken off of Okada and Ishii that they had time to fill or whatever. I don't know, but it was nothing special. It's like if you're gonna, I know that Collision is the wrestling centric show of the two, where Dynamite still centers on wrestling, but is far more storyline driven, um, promo driven than Collision is. But this seemed like they could have filled the time better. So I'm wondering if maybe they had to cut that match short. Um, Julia Hart versus Harley Cameron was good for what it was. Harley Cameron continues to improve. She continues to be super over. She was selling the Black Mist pretty funnily. She came out with sunglasses, and then she looked awesome in those sunglasses, by the way. Hot girl grabs, baby. She took them off, and then she winces from the bright light, like overselling the light and everything. Like she's just one of my favorite performers right now. I want the world for her. When she gets that first win, the crowd is going to erupt. It wasn't here though. She taps to the Heartless. Uh,
He's gonna
but
be
uh, but
Australia.
but honestly, yeah, I think that's the play. You do it in her home country. You finally give her that big singles first win in Australia. But here, she did get a lot more. She was a little bit more aggressive. She got more offense in than she normally does in these matches. I think they're probably playing that due to the infection of the Black Mist. I feel like there's an opportunity here to lean into Cameron's strengths and have the Black Mist infection not quite do what Julia Hart was hoping for it to do and go in a comedic direction, because I think they play really well off each other because Harley is so over the top comedic and Julia Hart is deadly serious and spooky and stoic and very, the character takes herself very seriously. I feel like there might be something here in a program that could be really entertaining that doesn't necessarily need to revolve around actual wrestling and maybe just like a whole bunch of skits that maybe culminates in another match. But like I feel like there's potential for comedy to be mined here. Where normally the Black Mist is deadly serious, I think with somebody who's a cartoon like Harley, I think maybe we have the opportunity to do something different here, and I like different. Different is good most of the time. Um, Match number 7, the main event was 12-man tag that everybody freaked out about unnecessarily last week online. Rated FTR, the Outrunners, and Powerhouse Hobbs versus the Learning Tree and the Death Riders. There was a running thing throughout the show where Jericho said, "Hey, I understand, John Moxley, you might not trust me. We have a lot of history, but I think you know me well enough to know that I'm gonna be offering you a peace offering." And so later they cut to backstage where the Learning Tree laid out Hobbs. They took his knee brace, they beat up his knee, and they left him for dead. And then a guy with a headset came on and acted just very unconvincingly. "Oh, we need help.
Are you
They, they,
okay?
oh, are you okay?" Oh, we need to hello like
Yeah.
maybe practice that first. Um, it didn't come off well. But that being said, so the babyface team was a man down by the time the main event hits. Um, Death Riders still don't really trust the learning tree much as Jericho would like them to, but their learning tree are going out of their way to play ball and play nice with the Death Riders. Uh, there was some good stuff. Lots of rotating faces in peril. Yuta got in and worked a lot of the match. I think from a character standpoint to try to make up for his recent failure in the casino gauntlet and stuff like that. Like he seemed like he really wanted to prove himself in this match to the other members of the Death Riders. Uh, Lots of back and forth, that kind of stuff. Anytime Jericho and Copeland got in the ring together, the crowd knew what was up. They're like, "Oh yeah, here we go!" Like the nostalgia hits, man. Like you
Yeah.
can't help it. You can't help it. You know that those two have history. History always breeds nostalgia if given enough time. Um, at the end, the end comes when there's like everybody goes to the outside almost. Like everybody's brawling to the outside. Uh, the Death Riders tried to kidnap Cope at one point. They put a hood over his head and
I tagged him.
they each grab a limb, but it's you know it looked silly.
Yeah.
Uh, it really looked silly.
It's, uh,
But the baby faces are like so incensed by this that they start this brawl on the outside, and almost everybody goes. And all that's left are the outrunners in the learning tree. And then as soon as Brian Keith looks like it's going to be over, Powerhouse Hobbs' music hits and he comes limping down the ramp and just cleans house. And he clotheslines everybody, and he just oh man, it was great. It was really well done. He and Big Bill have a really good Meat Man segment. Uh, Eventually he gets dumped over. Bill gets dumped over the top rope, but Jericho gets hit with the total recall, and then Keith, who's a legal man, tries to hit Powerhouse with the Ring of Honor World Title belt behind the ref's back. Gets spine buster for his trouble. 1, 2, 3. The injured guy who heroically comes back and even gets the pin. Like while sowing the seeds of like, why didn't any of you guys help me? Like a lot of things. There were a lot of moving parts to this match, moving things forward. Uh, and I think honestly, it was I wouldn't say it was great, but it was a really good match that should put the haters to bed because honestly, all of their concerns were just delayed. Like this was going to be addressed. Like this match was made by Tony Khan. It wasn't put together by the heel team. Okay, they didn't want to work together. They were put together in a match. Like can they coexist thing was brought up. It was dealt with. It was a major storyline that ran through the night. Like people need to have more faith in cliffhangers. They just need to. Why is this up? Instead of immediately getting on it, it's like that doesn't help anybody. Like, why are you doing this? Like, just certain things. More often than not, actually, most of these kind of things in wrestling, these pre-announcements, you have to let play out. Now, I understand that sometimes you have to earn that trust, but I think the AEW has earned that trust
mhm.
with pre building their matches, on a week to week basis. They've been giving us their cards, or at least the main matches of their cards, a week in advance ever since Dynamite started. Like there are plans here, guys. So like when you see something like this, maybe just like wait to see how it works out, and you know maybe it doesn't. In this case, I think it did though. Like I think honestly that this was I mean, they cut the Outrunners entrance, which made me sad. But other than that, I thought the match was perfectly serviceable. It had both good wrestling action and good storytelling. Uh, I don't think anybody really looks worse for wear here. I think everybody got over. So yeah, what more do you want?
Yeah, it actually turned out a lot better than I thought it would. So I'm on board.
Yeah. I mean, these 12 guys in a single match, that's a lot
Yeah, it's
to
hard.
book. It's hard. Like you got to make sure everybody, gets their moments and stuff. So like I could have done without the weird kidnapping angle that lasted about 10 seconds as they try to awkwardly bring Cope down the stairs as the hood is falling off of his head. But like eh, it was an excuse to have them go out. And then who was the one who got the pin? It wasn't the former world champion. It wasn't the former world tag team champions. It was the up and coming tag team setting up the up and coming babyface. So even the people who were involved in the finish were the right ones,
Yeah,
you know. So yeah, I thought it was you know more than serviceable. Good
yeah,
episode of Collision.
for sure. I really enjoyed it.
So yeah, that was that. You want to call in the ring?
Yeah, it's time to call in the ring, man. All right, so for this week's Call in the Ring, we are going to do something a little bit different than we normally do. Normally, we each have like a little segment, and we have our lone list and all this, but today it is story time with Adam D, baby. Where
Yeah.
last week, before the podcast, we were, talking and sharing stories as we normally do, and Adam brought up that he was at a show where New Jack tried to kill somebody with Wolverine claws. I guess I'll let him elaborate.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, yeah.
so I said, no, we're not just going to gloss this over with like a 10-minute story. You're going to tell the story of this show and all of its craziness on next week's Caught in the Ring. So that's what we're doing. So Adam, go ahead.
So, okay, this to give you a little background because No Adam's story is a short one. You need context. This was the third WrestleMania that I went to. The first one that I went to, I went with Aaron, Houston. I went 2 years later in Atlanta with some of my buddies. Those same buddies I went for another two WrestleManias, 29 and 31. So this was in New Jersey prior to WrestleMania 29, which was an all-time letdown with the exception of The Undertaker and CM Punk. I want to put that in there. That match was the only saving grace on that show. The Raw after was an all timer. I want to slam me. So, there's that. But we didn't just do WrestleMania and the Raw after. We came in, I think on uh Wednesday, maybe Thursday, and we did a couple of things that WrestleCon was doing. Uh, One of the indie shows that were in the air because this was during the era, like this was right when people were starting to pick up that going to the same town that WrestleMania was in. I mean, and WWE was there in that same town for a week. So going to that town and putting on your own indie shows and putting on wrestling conventions was lucrative because people were already in town for wrestling related purposes. So you can, and there were thousands and thousands and thousands of them. So you could make money by, putting on indie shows and stuff like that. So the one we went to was the Pro Wrestling Syndicate uh, event on April 4th, 2013, 2013, at the SMG Sportsplex in Metuchen, New Jersey. Metuchen, New Jersey is fine. It's not, I'll say this. As a New Yorker, I am obligated to hate on New Jersey. It's in the contract you sign as soon as you come out the womb. So like we're just haters. They hate us right back. It's fine. It's a mutually agreed upon situation. We all hate each other. We're all fine with it. Much like I imagine it's the same with Aaron, you being Texan, and Oklahomans. Very much the same kind of vibe that I get.
Oh, totally rough for me because most of my family's from Oklahoma. Um, yeah, I shouldn't be
Don't
admitting.
say that out loud. Now they're gonna hate on you.
They can hate.
Hey, 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 hey. Um, but I will say it's certainly not the worst place in New Jersey I've ever been. I think Newark is one of the scariest places I've ever been outside the airport. The airport is the only place there that I felt safe. Um, but I kind of define it as like anything on the coast of New Jersey. It's very urban and kind of dirty and dangerous to a degree, varying degrees. But there's a reason they call it the Garden State. So any place that's like off the coast is gorgeous. There's amazing natural beauty in the majority of the state of New Jersey. That's not where the majority of the people live, but it's where the majority of the beauty is. Man, I'm gonna get us hated on. But the point is, Metuchen is not super far from New York City. It's not super far from where we were staying in Jersey City, which is like directly across the state line. Like we were right. Like I don't think we were a mile from the state line where we were staying. So we go to Metuchen, and it's this big sports complex, local sports complex. It's not like it's huge, but it's got like an indoor soccer stadium and stuff like that. Um, we built one in my hometown. We built like one of those indoor sports complexes, but ours is bigger than theirs, so it's kind of contained. Huge ceilings though, the acoustics, everything bounced off of it. So you could hear a lot. In some cases, you could hear the wrestlers calling their matches, uh, which was yeah. But the thing that I remember immediately was getting in there, and it was well before the show. It was maybe an hour before the show actually started, and everybody had their merch tables lined up and stuff like that. They had a lot of big names, and the one who immediately at the time I would have said accosted. I will be kinder now and said, try to make an opportunity for themselves. The person who came up and was probably most aggressive about meeting people and subsequently getting them over to their merch table was Ricky Morton. He and Robert Gibson were there. They had a match on that show, and Ricky was very he is a very gregarious individual. I don't know if any of you watch AEW with RJ City. They release a new episode every Sunday. It's a humorous interview segment. And since the Rock and Roll Express were on Collision a couple of weeks ago, uh, they took the opportunity to have them be interviewed by RJ. And it's a great episode, one of the best ones. You should definitely go watch it. But if you watch that episode, you will definitely see that Ricky Morton is. I don't know if anybody is more pure personality than that man. Like he has such a way about him. He is so likable and he is so people friendly. Like I can understand why he got as far in his business as he did because he is like the personification of positivity without patting himself on the back for it.
Yeah.
Like, but that does make him an aggressive salesman. And he was very much trying to get every single person in that building over to his merch table. And so we're like, no thanks. So we politely waved him off, and we went to go around and check out the building. One of my friends, John, who later on this trip, in the parking lot at MetLife Stadium where we were tailgating, I gave him a knife edge chop on his bare chest, and made him throw up. And I've never chopped anybody again. I don't have any formal training, so I don't know how badly I messed up. But yeah, I made a man throw up with the chop. So Gunter, don't come at me. Uh,
You might
you
think.
won't like what you see, what you find. Um, but yeah, but that friend, John, he struck up a conversation. I think this was right after actually he had his mouth wired shut. He had gotten a jaw injury, and I think he had his teeth wired. Uh, no, I couldn't have been. I don't know. I'm an old man. I'm getting my stuff mixed up. But what I do know is that he did buy a little button off of Colt Cabana with the Star of David on it because it was funny. Uh, Colt Cabana was very. I mean, Colt Cabana kind of is exactly how you see him. Like what you see is what you get with Colt. There's not really much like fake about that presentation. He's just kind of a goofball,
Yeah.
and I kind of love him for it. Honestly, I'm a huge goofball myself. I was so starstruck though. I didn't talk to like anybody. Like I had and continue to have anxiety issues with, meeting people like that. But it was still a fun time. The uh, like the commissioner for that show, the night, the one night commissioner was Vader. He came out in a suit, but still wearing his mask. And you see them on TV and you see everybody next to each other. And because, especially with his era, everybody was like Land of the Giants, you kind of forgot that not only was he wide horizontally, he was also wide, vertical, big. Like he was 6'4". Like, he was a large man vertically as well. And it wasn't, I didn't really realize that until I saw him in person because this is the first time I think I'd ever seen him in person, at least up close. And like, holy cow, that dude's enormous. I didn't realize I forgot that he was that tall because when you're going up against guys who are like, you know, 6'5" on the reg, it doesn't really register as being out of the norm.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, he was playing like the kind of baby face ish, one night commissioner for the show. I'm looking at the card here, and half of these, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember half of the stuff that happened because I was with my friends having a good time and stuff like that. But just looking at the names on some of the show, the first match was Trent Beretta versus Sanjay Dutt. Love me some Sanjay. Trent goes over. I don't really remember much about that match, but I remember the crowd. The pop for the first match was big, like it always is, which was a good sign. Um, Fatal Four Way for the PWS Tag Team Championship featured a lot of names that I still to this day don't recognize. So sorry, guys. I hope y'all's careers are doing well, though. Like I honestly mean that. I don't know any of you guys, but I mean, okay. The Southside Players Club of Joe Hardway and Mo Sexton, they were accompanied to the ring by Amber O'Neil and Shelly Martinez. I knew the girls. I knew Shelly at least and Amber, but like I didn't know that. Singles match. Dan Maff defeated Kevin Steen. I remember really being upset about that because I liked Steen. I was like, oh no, I don't even remember how it happened, how he went over. But Dan Maff, still kind of mad that you went over Steen to this day. Simon Dean came out next. Simon still hawking the Simon system. Did not seem to be taking it because he was not in good shape. He was defeated by, and I kid you not, a wrestler named the Drunken Swashbuckler. Wrestling, guys, can be anything. And it was no more evident than in the next match where Alex Reynolds, yes, that Alex Reynolds of Dark Order, but much younger, who was the PWS Tri-State champion, defended his title against Starman from the Pro Wrestling NES video game from 1986.
Oh, geez.
He was pink. He had the purple trunks. He had the star on his face. He moved like he was in 8 bits. It was spectacular. Reynolds attacked Starman, and He attacked him before the bell and kind of got the advantage on him and beat him. And then Vader came out and was like, "Nah, that's not acceptable because you did heel things. We rematched. We're gonna restart the match." And then Starman won the Tri-State Championship. It was great. One of the biggest pops of the night. It was fantastic. It was like, it's Starman. Oh, um, and I think the next match was okay. It was a seven-way hardcore scramble match. Seven. Why seven? What? I don't know. New Jersey. I don't know, but it was uh Apollyon, Lucifer Darkside, Devin Moore, Matt Tremont, Tommy Dreamer, and the Necro Butcher, and New Jack.
Oh,
So this was a hardcore scramble, right? So it was just a seven-way, one fall to a finish kind of deal. Um, I don't remember the finish. I know Necro Butcher went over. I don't remember the finish. What I do remember is some of the action in that match. There was this scaffolding kind of deal, this metal scaffolding. I think they were trying to build. I don't know what they were trying to build, or maybe they were trying to fix part of the ceiling or something. But there was this metal scaffolding that New Jack, being New Jack, decided that he was going to climb up on top of and dive all onto the other competitors from about. I don't want everything in wrestling is exaggerated. I don't, I I was far away. I can't necessarily judge the height with any degree of accuracy, but that must have been at least 25 feet in the air. At least. At least. So New Jack just over the top. Everybody, it's crazy. And then later in the match, he pulls out what I can only describe as Wolverine claws and starts slicing people up. Blood is everywhere. It's a mob scene at this point. No, I had no idea what was going on. The Necro Butcher went over. The match was over, and then they went to uh, the uh, the intermission. But we're not done with New Jack yet because intermission was when New Jack got on the microphone and let loose with what appeared to be a very angry shoot promo that dropped several N bombs, hard R N bombs, uh, like it was. I mean, as memorable as Wolverine claws of all things were, I think it was the promo that actually was the one that got wrestling banned from Metuchen, New Jersey for quite a time. I thought it was still that, but in the research for the show, I guess they actually have their first, I think it's their first wrestling show since that match coming, or I think they had it in 2024 at some point, but like that's an 11-year ban at most because I don't think it was the violence. I honestly think it was New Jack's promo where he just used every swear word in the book and he dropped every permutation of the N word that you could think of. And it was just, and we didn't like, it's not like he was appearing elsewhere on the show. He was setting something up that we could determine. It was just, he was just going off because he was probably high and he was probably drunk because he was all absolutely New Jack. So, oh man, what a legacy that guy has. May he rest in power, I guess. I don't know. He was a bad person. He was a bad person, guys. Anyway, we come back from absolute chaos of an intermission. I've never had an intermission that chaotic. Everybody was uncomfortable. Nobody knew what to do. Everybody was rushing to the bathroom or to a merch table to try to not have to be associated with this promo. If I remember correctly, he had to be like ushered out by people who I didn't recognize. So they weren't. I don't think they were wrestlers. I think they were promoters or security or somebody independent or something like that. It wasn't the boys who calmed him down. That's for sure. But we came back uh, from intermission to a battle royal. This was fun. Some guy named Bonesaw, who wasn't Randy Savage, won. He
So is
beat
ready.
Bonesaw was ready. Oh, yeah, dig it. Um, but he beat Corey Havoc, Devious, Facade, Francis Kipling Stevens, uh, John Silver, Lance Anoa'i, the Big O, Timmy I, Hurricane Helms, and the guy in the match that I was most excited to see in his return to the ring after several years off. And I think this might have been one of his last shows too. The Human Tornado
Oh,
was on this show, and I was like, I popped huge for the Human Tornado. I was like, I remember you from Wrestling Society X. Like, great. You were great in PWG from what I've seen of it. Like, I was really sad when he or Hurricane didn't win, but whoever the Bonesaw guy was, looking at those names, I'm just thinking like, not to disrespect anybody, but like even in E-Feds, I've seen better names than some of this. Like devious, it's an adjective. It's not a name. Like what are we doing here? Um, John Morrison then defeated Elijah Burke in an okay match because Elijah Burke is just okay. Uh, the best thing about Elijah Burke on this show was that after the show, we saw him erupting from a Nissan Sentra that was full of suspiciously smelling smoke. Uh, bloodshot eyes, slurred speech, the whole deal. Like it was, he was baked. He was long past baked. He was broiled. Um,
My man's
but
got.
yeah, that was. I want to say he didn't work the match high. I don't want to imply that he didn't. That was definitely after the show as we were heading to our car that we saw that. But it definitely happened. We saw it. I seen it. I seen it. Next match was the Briscoes taking on the Rock and Roll Express, which was, it was fun. Like, I mean, let's be real here. They were old, they're old now, but they were old then too. And so, they did what they could. And Ricky Morton played as good a Ricky Morton as anybody's ever played a Ricky Morton. Uh, but the Briscoes lose when Jay takes a double drop kick, which to go back to an earlier point you made, I thought was like, I know that's their finish, but that was their finish from 1986. And like Mark and Jay Briscoe, I've seen them in Ladder Wars. Like, I don't know, man. Something don't smell right. But it's fine. PWS heavyweight title match. Kevin Matthews, whoever he was, he didn't really. I don't know. He didn't make an impression on me. Defeated Colt Cabana and made everybody sad. But that wasn't the main event. The main event made everybody happy, including this guy, because I got to see in a triple threat match Tony Nese, Davey Richards, and Jushin Thunder Liger.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I was in heaven. I love Liger. Liger's, I think he's arguably the best junior heavyweight, cruiserweight, whatever, however you want to categorize him, the best of all time. I love the guy. It was so cool to see him live. I'd never seen him live before, and I would never see it live again. But it was so cool to see him. I think he beat Richards. I think he pinned him with the Liger Bomb, if I'm not mistaken, the running Liger Bomb. But it was so cool. Like I needed it too after seeing all that blood spilt with Wolverine claws and lots of uncomfortable language being used by somebody you couldn't really answer to because what were you going to say to New Jack? Um, it was really, really, really cool to see Jushin Thunder Liger, a veritable legend in this business, on a card that was full of legends, really. But it was a pleasure to see him work, and he was as good as I've ever, he was as good as I expected. It was fantastic. But yeah, like uh, it was, I love going to indie shows, but there's something special about the indie shows that happen before a WrestleMania because they attract a lot of bigger names, so you get a lot of talent that you've never seen before interacting with talent that are very actual legends. You get it's so cool, but it also goes to show that you don't really know what you're going to get in a good way and also in a bad way. Sometimes you see murder
Right?
attempted in front of you. Uh, it was, I mean, it was definitely the most interesting, weirdest show I've ever been a part of. I can't think of any other wrestling shows I've ever been to that have been quite this chaotic.
Right.
But it does go to my point. My point in telling this story is please go. If you're not a person who goes to indie shows, please go because there's more outside of in the world of wrestling than just the big brands. And if you're local, if you have a local fed, go and support them. You never really know. I mean, a lot of them can get big names, for like 1 day payouts. I've seen a lot of guys who were former and then future big names come through my local feds. Like, and you can see them at an affordable price before they become huge stars. You're watching the future when you go to when you go to indie feds these days. Not everybody on the show is going to make it, but one or two of them these days probably will. There's more places for them to work than ever. So, and I don't think there's ever been as rich a talent pool in the history of wrestling than there is right now. Like look at how stacked the AEW and WWE rosters are right now. They're full of guys who could conceivably be world champions, but not everybody can be a world champion.
Mm-hmm.
Like they Osprey, best wrestler in the world, currently working, in my opinion, relegated to upper mid card status because they've got plans and they've got so many other guys that are in the world title scene right now. But that's a great thing because you can get draws all over the card now instead of just at the top. But
Mm-hmm.
like, there's so much talent out there. Go be on the ground floor, watch somebody rise from the bottom up. It's really rewarding as a wrestling fan just to be able to say, I saw that guy in such and such a town when I was, 3 years ago, and now he's on the big stage. That's so cool for him. You feel like you're not, I mean, you feel like you're a small part of it because, you paid a ticket to see that person that helped, that person along. If, a few of those people don't show up for that show, that may be something that turns a wrestler off and be like, maybe this isn't worth it because I'm not drawing the crowds that I want. You know, go support them, support your indie feds locally because it's not just for them but for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a proponent of go to see your local indie feds. We got about three or four here. I don't get to make it out as much as I want to, but there's also three or four of them. So
Yeah, me too. I've got the young kids and a wife who works not overnights but second shift, so it's hard for me to get out and support like I would want to too. But I would encourage anybody who has the opportunity to go do it.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I do anytime I can for sure, and it's always a good time. Even if I don't know anybody on the card, it's I get to watch some wrestling. I get to go back. So a lot sometimes I know the people, so I'm backstage. And I'm like, hey, that was a good match. Never seen you before.
Yeah, you never know who you're going to discover. Like that's part of the fun.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, I had to get this segment out with that crazy ass story. Maybe one day
Yeah.
Super Card of Honor 4 and
Yeah.
we'll talk about that one.
Yeah.
That has a
I mean, that has the story that's interesting about that is what happened afterwards,
yeah.
mostly. I mean, not that the show wasn't good because it was,
Yeah.
and it kind of chaotic in and of itself too,
Mhm.
as I recall. But yeah, the the more interesting story is the party afterwards.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah, I think that's it for tonight. For the Call It in the Ring.
Yeah.
You remember everybody, check us out on our socials. We will see you next week before Raw, as we always do. Remember that we love you. Take good care of yourself, and thank you for listening.
Yes, thank you. We will catch you on the next one.
Great.